Добрый день, everyone. Welcome to the Why Ukraine live stream. This is going to be a little bit of a difficult one today, and I appreciate you all for coming. It's important that you're here. It's not going to be easy, maybe talking about these things. I especially would like to thank you if you happen to be here and you are a Ukrainian. Of course, everyone is welcome. But obviously I don't speak very good Ukrainian, so I'm not going to be able to do this in your language, but I hope that you can listen and hold out for as much as you can, because this is important information here. And if you didn't already know about it, it's not easy to talk about, but we need to. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is explain, mainly for the Ukrainian audience, that Ukraine has an international legion, a foreign legion, that was started by President Zelensky, like February 25th, it was announced, something to that degree. And the fact is that most Ukrainians that I speak to don't even know that there are foreign fighters, Americans particularly, but people from countries all over the world don't even know that there are foreign fighters in Ukraine, much less the fact that there is an entire international legion. I don't know why my comments are not showing yet. Oh, yeah, there we go. Petra has the first comment. Thank you for coming, Petra. And you may ask, why am I bringing up this topic on Ukraine's Independence Day of all days? By the way, happy Independence Day. I live here in Ukraine. I intend to live here for the rest of my life. And the reason why I'm doing it today is precisely because it is Ukraine's Independence Day. It's a time when we should all be reflecting on the good and bad, and mostly good, of this country. The country that we're all fighting for. Those of you who are in the chat, people from all over the world who support Ukraine, this is one question I get asked all the time by Ukrainians. Why would a person in America or some other country, Catherine K. Bell in the chat here, she's from Australia, okay? She comes to Ukraine all the time to help in Ukraine. Sally is in America. Petra is in Sweden. And we're all here supporting you guys. We're all here supporting Ukraine. I'm physically here in Ukraine. A lot of Ukrainians don't understand why. And let me just read. I should have had this up on my screen. God, I hate when I do that. Let me just read for you something that I read. This is the first thing I read this morning when I woke up. I am trying to join a unit. I'm trying to join a couple of different units simultaneously, but I've been trying to join the International Legion for quite a long time, and have been unsuccessful. I'm also trying to join a Ukrainian unit, and the commander of that unit today wrote this, and I'm just going to translate it and read it. He said, "Happy Sisters and Brothers Holiday." This might be a bad translation, but it's good enough. When it's hard for us, when we don't understand each other, when everything falls out of hand, when we don't want to move and have no strength, remember for what purpose, why we have gathered here. We are together only because we were lucky to be born in a country of free-spirited people. Appreciate it. We have something to lose and something to gain. Independence is a treasure that we have and that we are obliged to protect. Glory to the nation. Glory to Ukraine. Together to victory. And my response to that was, people ask me all the time why I'm in Ukraine. And this is exactly why. Exactly that is why I'm in Ukraine right now. Why I'm honored to be here to help Ukraine in its time of need. And there are thousands and thousands of Americans, Brits, Australians, people from countries all over the world who have come to Ukraine to fight for exactly that same reason, to fight for not just your freedom, not just the freedom of Ukraine, but for the freedom of everyone, because we're all in this together. Not, and I want to say this very clearly to any Ukrainian watching, before we get into this news article from the Kiev Independent, the foreign fighters who are here in Ukraine are not here because they are professional killers. They're not here because they, are adrenaline junkies. They're sure as hell not here for the money, because the money that the Ukraine army pays is nothing. I mean, maybe compared to some countries, but compared to the pay that a normal person could get working a normal job in most of the countries of the people who are living here in Ukraine, it's the foreign fighters who are living here in Ukraine, it's nothing. Okay, they're not here for the money. They're here to help you in your fight for freedom, because they believe in freedom too. And I know that's really hard for Ukrainians to understand. Like, why would someone come all the way around the world, give up their life in, America or some other country that you think is much better? Probably. Why would they do that? It's because we care about you. We care about Ukraine. And so here's a problem, right? Ukraine, I would argue, doesn't care about us. Ukraine, the government of Ukraine doesn't care about the foreign fighters here in general. And the Ukrainian people, for the most part, don't even know that we exist. Don't even know. And when you do know, you make a whole bunch of assumptions about why we're here, what we're doing here, and why we came. And I'm going to tell you right now, as I just explained, those are wrong. Those assumptions are wrong. And I think that big pile of assumptions that Ukrainians tend to make about the foreign fighters who come here when they do find out that we're here is part of the reason why your government has been as neglectful as it has been. And it's time that changes. It's time that is fixed. This cannot be allowed to continue. Before I get into this, I did approach someone that I knew in part of the command of the International Legion, not related to this article at all, about the information that's presented here by the Kiev Independent, and someone who I trust and respect. And their response was this. This article is clear BS, no fresh facts, describing general picture, e.g. mixed two legions under different commands, I guess. Of course, we react to such claims, but in most cases, they were posted by loser who did not pass training. Little swipe there. Only during last month, there were 3 audits which we passed openly and without any issues, which I completely believe. He of course, is a different part of the International Legion, not necessarily the part that's being described here, but I will talk about different parts of the Legion today. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're just going to do a read of the article, just a straight read. And by the way, if you'd like to read along or read it later, maybe you don't want to sit through this live stream and you want to come back, I just put a link in our in the comments here, in our chat, rather. That's what I meant. Hey, Martin, thanks for coming. And those of you who are here, look, I've read this whole article a couple of times over. Some of this is going to make you angry. Maybe this will stress you out. It's okay if you need to leave. I will totally understand. Just don't shoot the messenger, okay? This is anybody can go to this website and read it. And the Kiev Independent is pretty well respected. By the way, this is not the first article that the Kiev Independent has done on this subject, and we'll talk about those articles. Okay. So, here we go. I hope this doesn't take too long. Investigation. Almost 2 years into first reports of wrongdoing, Ukraine's International Legion appears immune to change. By Anna Mironyuk, August 5th. So this came out August 5th, guys. And I've been intending to do this since then. Okay. And other things have happened, but I can't put it off any longer. Despite investigations by Ukrainian law enforcement and global public attention following reports by the Kiev Independent and other media outlets in 2022 to 2023, the International Legion appears to have made no substantial changes. And the last thing I'm going to say before I get into this is I'm not here to complain. I'm here to report and present potential solutions to the problem. I hate people. No, I don't hate people. I dislike it when people just complain about things that are terrible and bad, but don't provide any solutions, or at least potential solutions to the problem. That's one reason why I didn't want to talk about this for the better part of a month, because I wanted to think about, what should we do to solve these problems? What's a reasonable thing to do? So I want to take a minute. I feel like I want to. Maybe I should put this in the. No, I think after the stream here, I'm going to put the article link in the description. I'm sorry I didn't do that. The description, and I'll pin it in the comments so people can read it. And the preceding articles from starting from 2022. Editor's note. This is the third part of the Kiev Independent's investigation into the International Legion, a military formation created for foreign fighters defending Ukraine. Published in August 2022, the first part revealed leadership misconduct in the military. Here, I'll just click on that now. So there's the article. And I'll copy that one too for you guys to read. Leadership misconduct in the military, intelligence-led wing of the Legion. The second part, published in November of 2022, showed, now I guess we got a link to that as well. Yeah, here we go. Second part, published in November 2022, showed that the reported issues also apply to the other part of the Legion overseen by the armed forces. This third installment revisits the previously reported issues, responding to interest from our readers. While reporting about issues within the Legion, the Kyiv Independent takes precautions as to not determine the personnel security in the light of Russia's war against Ukraine. We leave out certain details that aren't key to the narrative, such as locations, and don't publish the names and commanders that soldiers accused of wrongdoing if these commanders don't have public profiles already. And that is going to be true for me here as well, as I've already stated on my community, in the post on my community page. I'm not going to be talking about any individual person, except maybe one. And that person I still have respect for. Just, I'm not going to use their name, just kind of their nickname, if it happens to come up. And while I have a lot of my own similar stories that I have heard, that I've been told by fighters in the Legion, I'm not going to mention their names. I'm going to try not to give away any personal information, any identifying information. And I will also say that if you feel that you've been mentioned in this live stream, and you don't, and you know, you want me to take it out, I'll definitely consider that. You know, for whatever reason, to be honest, even if it's not a legitimate reason. And I certainly don't want to say anything or do anything that's going to cause trouble for someone who doesn't deserve it, and or, God forbid, threaten any lives, which would be a nightmare for me. But lives are being threatened, lives are being lost because of these issues, and we have to talk about them. So I think it's time I make this big. Not because I'm old. Yeah, Nikki Hill, I agree. Happy Independence Day to Ukraine. And it's with that in mind, let's get in. Top findings. After investigations by Ukrainian law enforcement and global public attention following Kyiv Independent and other media reports in 2022-2023, the Legion seems to have not implemented any substantial changes. Instead of suspending or firing commanders subject to soldiers' complaints, the leadership of the Legion either kept them at their posts or transferred them to other units. Commanders in the military intelligence arm of the Legion continue to abuse subordinates in the ways similar to what the Kyiv Independent reported in 2022. And that's this article here and this article here. Legionnaires again report poor control over equipment and arms in certain divisions. Legion keeps around soldiers with controversial and criminal backgrounds, including the infamous ex-member of a Polish organized crime group, Pyotr Kapuscinski. Drug and alcohol abuse is frequent. One such party in a safe house culminated in the murder of a soldier. Wounded legionnaires accuse Ukrainian officers of forcing them to break their contracts, which deprives them of financial compensation for injuries. Soldiers claim to struggle to receive injury payments as well as combat payments due to Legion's failure to provide them with the required paperwork. I can confirm many of these things. These are things that I have heard from many fighters, and not just in the Legion. Okay, this problem with pay, not getting paid, especially it seems for foreign fighters, seems to be a problem across the Ukrainian military. Ukraine's military intelligence broke their silence and commented on the allegations about the part of the Legion that they oversee. They praised the Legion as an effective unit and said all alleged cases of misconduct are investigated. The second branch overseeing foreign fighters, the ground forces, didn't respond to the Kyiv Independence questions. So now the article. Hello, CF, and thank you everyone for coming. Keith, yes, Ukraine did just pass a law about foreign fighters being able to get citizenship. Tridents Against Tyrants was talking about that article in his live stream. Hang on a moment. So I've got a new stand-up desk that I'm very proud of. It was literally made for me by hand today. I'm pretty stoked about it. But when I designed this desk, I wasn't thinking about where am I going to put my tea. That didn't occur to me. So maybe I'll have to make some sort of add-on where I can put all my teacups. Thanks, Nikki. This might not be an easy stream, but it needs to be addressed. And we're only talking about this subject today, okay? Hey Cheryl, thank you for coming, and I totally understand. And Haji, thank you very much for coming. Anybody, if you join late, please go back to the beginning a little bit and listen to the first part of, first, 10 minutes or so of this. Do a little catch up, double speed, because there's some caveats and things, and I don't want you just jumping in and going, what the hell's going on? Okay. So, the International Legion was destined to be a PR success for Ukraine. Launched at the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, it attracted foreigners who volunteered to defend Ukraine, highlighting that the fight against Russian aggression was a global cause. But that effort has backfired. The Legion was soon marred in scandals, with legionnaires reporting misconduct and abuse. The fact that there hasn't been any public reaction from Ukrainian authorities in charge of it didn't help. Several foreign fighters the Kyiv Independent spoke to unanimously agreed. The conventional Ukrainian army is a better place to serve than the two units that make up the International Legion. I can tell you that there's 3. So that's the first error I found. There's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battalion, but maybe there's some things I don't understand. That's entirely possible. Okay. And it's entirely possible that this reporter doesn't understand them either. I don't want to work with foreigners. I love Ukrainians. It's foreigners that I have problems with, said a former soldier who had served both in the Legion and in a Ukrainian unit. Yeah, sometimes some of the guys, it's a minority, but a small percentage of some of the guys that I met in my brief time in training in the Legion had some problems. But for the most part, they were good guys, and they were just here to help. Right. So JPH, yeah, it's crazy and sad. And let me tell you, myself and a lot of other people in the Legion have been dealing with is holding this in our hearts for the past year, and I can't just let it slide by, and it's because I love not just Ukraine, but the International Legion that I'm bringing this up. Okay. Because the International Legion could be, just like they said at the beginning of the article here, the International Legion could be an amazing PR success. I mean, the International Legion, I don't know, there's not that many. I don't know. I'm going to estimate 2,000, maybe 3,000 fighters, excepting perhaps the Georgian Legion, which is separate. Technically International Legion, but separate. At one point, there were 20 applicants. Yes, Luca Mato, did I see Benjamin Reed's interview with Willie OAM? I've watched a lot of Willie OAM. And sometimes he's really accurate. Sometimes he really pisses me off and makes me angry. Because Willie is exactly... Damn it, there's a fly. Get out of here, stupid fly. Willie, he's one of these people who points out all these problems, but not solutions. Okay? And to me, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. Okay, so as we go along here, or at the end or something, I'm going to try and say, hey, this is how things could be done better. And, you know, the International Legion, there were 20,000 applicants to the Legion in the beginning of the war. And some of them were the, you know, highly trained fighters, the best in the world. Most of them were just regular guys like me. And I totally understand that. Ukraine was not prepared. Ukraine couldn't even train its own soldiers. So how is it going to take a bunch of, you know, plumbers and you know, I don't know, freaking car salesmen or whatever, and turn them into soldiers too, when it couldn't even, you know, handle that with its own soldiers? Completely reasonable that there should have been problems at the beginning. But it's been damn near 3 years now, 2.5 years, people. Okay? Yeah, Catherine, I kind of agree. I go back and forth on Willie sometimes, man. Okay, anyway. Let's get back. The main brigades of HUR, that's the intelligence itself, and SSO SBU, that's kind of like, I would equate it to our FBI, and HUR is equivalent to our CIA in the United States, but they both have military units now. So the main brigades of HUR itself and the SSO SBU, the Ukrainian portion where there are no foreigners, are excellent. Another soldier said, referring to the military intelligence and special operations forces of the security service. The military intelligence, now known under its Ukrainian acronym HUR, sometimes spelled GUR, because that's how Ukrainian is, runs one of the two units that comprise the International Legion. Again, okay, I understand what they're saying. I will tell you that I have no direct experience with the HUR. I know some people who are in it, who went from the military run unit to the HUR unit. And I asked one, I said, well, you know, it's part of the intelligence division, right? So they're going to be smart. And he looked at me like, not so much. Yeah. So I thought, maybe it'll be the same. Okay, maybe not the same, but it can't be that bad. It ended up being pretty bad in the Legion, the soldier added. Right now, the best thing for foreigners to do is to find a unit with Ukrainians, another ex-legionnaire said. Signing up with a Ukrainian unit is much easier for foreigners now than it was at the start of the full-scale war. Yet it can still be a challenge for those who don't know the local language and lack local connections. Can attest to that. Yeah, Mr. Squiggle, exactly. Oh, I didn't know that he reported Gonzalo Lira as a journalist. Yeah. And he bags Ukraine so much more than he criticizes Russia for its war crimes. Yes, exactly. It pisses me off that he does that. And his thing is that, well, we're the good guys, so we should be held to a higher standard. Okay. I digress. I'm not going to be a Willy, all right? And yeah, so this, I can attest to this. I'm in the thick of this right now. In 2022, the Kyiv Independent was among the first to report about leadership misconduct in the Legion. Back then, there had been no official reaction. Ever since then, the readers have kept asking the publication whether there was any accountability for the misconduct mentioned in the reports. In the past months, foreign fighters, current and former, have also started actively asking the Kyiv Independent to bring their problems to light again. It just struck me why there was no reaction, a foreign sniper and ex-legionnaire said. While working on this story, The Kyiv Independent reviewed the files and paperwork foreign fighters shared with us, including reports. I guess they mean reports, emails, screenshots of messages, videos, and interviewed 20 current and former legionnaires. We also spoke to their family members and friends, volunteers, and lawyers helping foreign fighters. We found that many of the problems we shed light on back in 2022 appear to still be there. Poor control over light weapons, commanders physically assaulting and threatening subordinates, and alcohol abuse ongoing in certain units. In addition, the interviewees complained about further problems not reported before. Legion staff allegedly failing to provide soldiers with the documents necessary for combat and injury payments, the mistreatment of wounded fighters, and poor discipline. We do not publish our sources' names to protect them from persecution by Russian groups that specifically target foreign fighters defending Ukraine and retribution in Ukraine for speaking up. That last part is the real reason. I can tell you that... let's see. Did I see Preston Stewart's very recent interview with the International Legion on this subject? I can't remember, Cheryl. I can't. Maybe I did. Damn. It escapes me. If you, well, here, while it's in my head and while you mention it, I don't want to stop reading too much, but I do want to. Let's see, Preston Stewart, International Legion. Oh, he's on TikTok? Okay, here we go. And that's March 16th. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, here we go. Military analyst. Okay, maybe this will... Aha, meet the Americans fighting for Russia. Did I see this?
These 4 Americans decided to fight for Russia, and for at least one of them, that decision would prove deadly. Just 2 months ago, in June of 2000.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Cheryl. I will take a look at that, because I know I did not see this. That's great. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Both the HUR and ground forces arms of the Legion don't seem to have fully resolved the problems the Kyiv Independent highlighted in its 2022 reports. However, 2 years later, one of the two bodies, HUR, has finally addressed the issues at the Legion in comments to the Kyiv Independent, breaking its silence about the matter. HUR told the Independent that, unfortunately, during active hostilities, there may be violations of military discipline and the rights or social guarantees of servicemen, and said it condemns this and prioritizes taking measures to react and conducts internal checks. When the Kyiv Independent's November 2022 article was published, her press officer told the Kyiv Independent the agency would conduct an internal check regarding the reported issues with the part of the International Legion it oversees. A month later, when asked about the results, the press officer refused to share the details, citing security risks. Interesting. According to the Legionnaire's assessment, this self-investigation did not lead to any change. While reluctantly communicating with the media, the Legion makes an effort to promote itself. In June, HUR premiered a film praising its foreign unit. And I think I've seen that. Yeah. It's great. Nice. And yeah, I've watched that. And also, the International Legion itself has a YouTube channel, which is great and shows some awesome... Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. I will... Whoa, Greg Terry just became a citizen. No shit. Martin, that's amazing. Yeah, I saw Catherine Google has the Ukrainian flag today. Yeah, that's really cool. Let me just pour my tea before we go any further. Oh, okay. So it looks like... Oh, Slavy is starting at 10. That's great. I'm not going to go till 10 o'clock, guys. So I want you guys to definitely go and join Slavy. Okay. Oh, it's the Shills. Yeah. Well, yeah. Join the Shills or join Slavy at 10. I'm not going to that because I have a huge week this next week, and I can't stay up too late tonight because it'll screw up my sleep cycle for the whole rest of the week. Okay. So what I was doing here was I was going to the International Legion for the Defense of Ukraine channel, which is here, and it's great. They have some great videos on there, just amazing stuff. And some of the people in the earliest videos, some of those are videos that the people that I trained with, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's continue. No, KKSGG, you're good. Yeah, it's all good. So I know Sakai always goes late. I just started late so that you wouldn't have to spend as much time catching up. KKSGG, I just recommend you kind of go back to the beginning and speed run through the first like 10 or 20 minutes maybe, so you understand some of the caveats. Yeah, Mr. Squiggle, I just realized Slavy is dual streaming the Shills, and definitely go to Slavy, like maybe dual stream the Slavy and the Shills if you can. Yeah, it's funny, Martin. I was very happy when I got my residency here too, and now sometime in the next month, probably I'm going to get my permanent residency in Ukraine. So the Legion also places ads on social media to invite new recruits. I haven't seen social media ads, but I've definitely seen their channel, and I've seen their website too, which is good, I think. According to the servicemen of the ground forces of the Legion, this unit hasn't been substantially improved either, but has gotten bigger instead, reportedly adding 2 battalions. And yeah, so that's the deal, right? So there's all right, well, we'll talk about it here. Ground forces didn't respond to the Kyiv Independent's request for comment. It refused to comment about the issues in the Legion in 2022 as well. Quote, now, in addition to 2 dysfunctioning battalions, 1st and 3rd, we also have a 2nd battalion, which was formed early in spring of 2023. And there's also the 4th battalion, said a former staff clerk. Now, my understanding from what I have... Oh, that's okay. All right, KK's. I mean, you don't have to. KK's GG. You don't have to go back and watch everything and just, it's all good. So there's... Let me just tell you kind of what I know about the structure. I don't know anything about the GERD or the HUR part of the Legion, but they're in the ground forces part. There's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd battalions. 2nd, I guess, according to this, is the newest battalion. I didn't know that until I read the article, to be honest. But according to everyone that I've spoken to in the Legion, they are the best in terms of organization. But they're also much more strict than the 1st or 3rd. So there's always arguments going back and forth between different units. Which one's the best or the worst, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd? I just spoke to someone recently, about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, I guess, who was just transferred from the 3rd, and he's now in the 2nd, and he had a terrible time in the 3rd, man. He said it was really bad. So anyway, so now in addition to 2 dysfunctioning battalions, we also have a 2nd battalion, which was formed early in spring of 2023. And there's also the 4th battalion, said a former staff clerk. By the way, when I make those statements like it's really bad, I hate to make those kind of general statements. I should be more clear. Just saying, oh, something is bad, I think is unfair. So I'll get into exactly what I mean by that here. Despite not publicly reacting to the reported problems inside the subordinated part of the Legion, the ground forces leadership was well aware of them, according to 2 closest sources close to the Legion's administration. Moreover, they tried to get the issues fixed. In February 2023, the ground forces created a new Department of Coordination of Military Service of Foreigners dedicated to protecting soldiers' rights across its Legion's 4 battalions. A former State Security Service SBU officer, Igor Baidukov, was appointed its head. However, according to Legionnaires, no substantial improvements in repatriations, injury compensations, or salary payments, which are inconsistent, have been achieved. When contacted by the Kyiv Independent, Davydov refused to discuss his work. It's the first time I've heard of this guy or this department. I'd like to meet them. I'd like to talk to them myself because, I want somebody to coordinate me, God damn it. Some problems the legions faced back in 2022 have been somewhat resolved, according to Rachel Jameson, director of Protect a Volunteer, an organization that helps foreign fighters with equipment, supplies, and medical care. Quote, I have seen big improvements in 2.5 years, mainly in relation to receiving contracts. In 2022, it was common to meet people who never received one, and that is rare now. And that is true. It still takes a long time for some people. And I mean like a month. But it's very rare to find someone who's like, I never got a contract. Oh, crap. Greg Terry starts in 30 minutes. I forgot to... I thought Greg Terry wasn't streaming today. Son of a bitch. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, thank you, JPH. Hey, Tridents. Sakai, how you doing? Wow, Stephen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just say something. Stephen, I'm going to take that $100 and I'm going to make sure that whatever part of it YouTube decides to give me, I'm going to give it, I'm going to use it to buy something or just give it to the International Legion. Oh, sorry, Ozzy. Sorry you missed it. I don't feel right about, collecting money for this live stream. So, in fact, what am I thinking? Why am I even here today? I'm here to support the International Legion. That's what I'm doing. So guys, this right here, go to whyukraine.com. You will note that I have just recently changed the name of the channel to whyukraine.com so that, if by some chance I forget to post the link to this, to my page, it's the name of the channel now. This is whyukraine.com. So this is to support Alpha Company of 1st Battalion with a truck, medevac truck for them. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl, for doing that. Cheryl just put the Preston Stewart interview in the Why Ukraine chat. Thank you very much, Cheryl. And if you guys need to jump over to Greg Terry, I totally understand that too. Just please come back and watch this and comment, especially, So let's get back to the article. It says, I've seen big improvements in 2.5 years. And by all attestments, there have been improvements. And we'll talk about what those, in my own experience, have been. One law enforcement agency that paid attention to the Kyiv Independent's 2022 reporting on the International Legion was the State Security Service, or SBU. In June 2023, the SBU came to the ground forces trying to figure out who gave the report to you. Said a source close to the administration of the Legion. When asked to confirm it, the SBU said it can't disclose any information about the actions that are part of a pretrial investigation. The report in question is a 78-page document detailing the problems in the Legion. It was compiled by some of its members back in 2022. It had already been seen by members of the parliament, representatives of the president's office, and ground forces before the Kyiv Independent obtained it and cited it in its stories about the Legion, yet didn't publish it for security reasons. The SBU tried to identify the Kyiv Independent's sources as part of its probe into the publication. The agency investigated the media outlet for obstructing Ukraine's armed forces and other military formations a criminal offense punishable by 5 to 15 years in prison. According to the Kyiv Independent sources with access to the information about the case, it was closed in February 2024. So, yes, and I knew about this. I heard about this. Thanks for coming, Cheryl, by the way. I knew about this. I knew that there was a very strong reaction by a lot of Ukrainians, actually, when the Kyiv Independent published these articles. And this would happen in America in a time of war. If you guys remember, after 9/11, anybody criticizing America or criticizing the military in America was practically ran out of the country on a rail, But it appears that this investigation was closed. It's very interesting to have this note here. Editorial: why we don't avoid unpleasant stories about Ukraine. The case was active at about the same time when other Ukrainian media outlets also found themselves at the center of attention from authorities, including the SBU. An investigative outlet, Bihus.info, was surveilled by the SBU for using hidden cameras installed in the hotel rooms in December 2023. The SBU reacted by firing or relocating to the front lines those responsible for the surveillance and publicly denouncing pressure on journalists. Later, so basically the SBU took its head out of its ass, which is pretty good. Later, an investigative journalist from a different outlet was served a draft notice as retribution for his report about a top SBU official, and I saw that report as well, and it was, okay. Accused commanders stay put. The commanders who legionnaires accused of abuse of power and mismanagement in the Kyiv Independent's 2022 reports haven't faced consequences, and I can confirm that this is true. I've heard this time and time again. Wow, so Animark History is doing a stream on the Kursk attack right now. Boy, I really thought, gosh, nobody's streaming tonight. It's going to be fine. It's all right, guys. I'm a minor player in this whole thing. Among them is Kapusinski, who manages to simultaneously be on the Polish police wanted list and in the leadership of the HUR part of the Legion. Kapusinski is still in charge of one of the forward bases and is still moving around as a free man, so whatever was attempted against him obviously didn't work, a former legionnaire said in spring 2024. Quote, he's untouchable, a corroborated another ex-HUR Legion soldier. Another high-level officer subject to soldiers' complaints is Major Taras Vashuk, a Ukrainian and acting commander of the HUR's foreign unit. Like Kapusinski, he faced no music, though some subordinates' accusations against him were repeated in new testimonies, disrespect, and expulsion from the Legion for those who dared to argue with him. And I want to say, that I wasn't ever involved in the HUR's foreign unit, but I have seen I did in my short time, I saw some things that were, expulsion from the Legion is a major threat that seems to be leveled at fighters, any fighter who speaks up or complains. Expulsion and, you're going to be, arrested by the SBU. I've been threatened by people who claimed to be legionnaires or in the Legion or part of the Legion, that they were going to have the SBU come hunt me down because I wasn't a real supporter of Ukraine or something crazy shit like that. But, that may have been just one crazy person. So, ground forces officers whom legionnaires accused of wrongdoings in 2022 also stay untouched. The chief sergeant of the 1st Battalion, Mykola Nikolai Bakaliuk, retained his post, just like the commander of the 3rd Battalion, Bogdan M. There's no Kiev Independent doesn't identify this and some other commanders' full names for security reasons. Commanders who have public profiles are identified in the story. And I can attest to that information as well. Although it's my understanding that with the recent, let's call it depopulation of the 1st Battalion, I'm a little bit confused. If my understanding is the 1st Battalion has a new chief sergeant. That's my understanding. I don't know. But my understanding is that this guy got a promotion. That's what I understand. I could be wrong. Around May 2023, both of the Legion's arms, the HUR and the ground forces units, fell under audit, which lasted until July of the same year. Sources in the Legion said that the audit was conducted by commanders from Kyiv. The only known result of the checks in the army-run part of the Legion was the transfer of Anatoly H., who served as chief of staff, from the 1st to the 3rd Battalion. The audit allegedly found him failing to keep the paperwork in order. So it sounds like it wasn't much of a check. Speaking to the Kyiv Independent, Anatoly H. confirmed he was demoted and transferred for improper performance of duties of a military unit commander. However, he denies any violations, saying it was unjust persecution caused by internal politics. He couldn't elaborate on what exactly he was allegedly persecuted for. Obviously, quote, obviously the incompetence didn't get solved because one person was removed. A former staff clerk said, "We just moved the problem." And that, I think, is really key. I think any problems here in the International Legion are not just a few bad apples. It's a systemic problem. It's a lack of organization and a lack of leadership at the very top, and by which I mean Zelensky. He's the one who started this. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, Animarchy history is freaking awesome, and Laserpig are awesome, and Perun. Thank you, Aussie Bugga. Man, I thought I checked everybody, but I had a lot of things going on today, guys. It's not the first time the ground forces has transferred an officer from the leadership of the 1st Battalion to the smaller 3rd Battalion instead of firing them. In May 2022, the same happened to Bogdan, then commander of the 1st Battalion. 3rd is where rejects from the 1st Battalion go. I've heard that too. But I've also heard it sometimes goes the other way. The audit in the HUR-led wing of the Legion is not known to have yielded results, according to the servicemen with whom the Kyiv Independent spoke. Legionnaires said they were warned about the upcoming audit in order to log the weapons they had on them into the armory room, which was something they weren't used to. It's a weird thing. To me, it's a weird thing. I don't know. As a soldier, you're not allowed to keep your weapons on you at all times. To me, that's strange. But, I'm not a military guy. But I thought you're supposed to sleep with your rifle, So that's a weird one for me. And it was when I was in training that, guys had to check in and check out. Anyway, enough. We were told ahead of time that it was going to happen, that we should be careful, and the risks, of having. And by the way, I'm not criticizing that policy. By the way, it's, it is what it is. And the risks, of us having the off the books things, like different bullets, anything in our cars, and that we should clean our cars and make sure we don't carry anything on us that we are not supposed to carry, one soldier said. Weapon chaos. The servicemen of the intelligence-run part of the Legion claim to often keep their weapons away from the armory room, where they belong when they aren't on the battlefield. See, and I can understand why this would happen, because if you're an American, you're like, no, I'm going to keep my gun. I'm not going to trust, with all that I've heard about corruption of Ukrainian army and all of this, I'm not going to trust to put my weapon, especially if it's one that I bought myself or brought with me or something like that. I'm not going to trust my weapon to the armory officer. You know, guys would even have weapons, grenade launchers, all sorts of explosives in their rooms when they should have been in the armory. Now, I mean, and the flip side of that is, you know, some guy blows himself up because, you know, he's being stupid. Some of the weapons are off the books completely and have never been in the armory. This includes presents, custom-made explosives, or war booty, soldiers said. In one case, soldiers recall getting a few Russian AKs in an assault. Upon returning from the front line, team leader Adam decided against logging them in the armory room. And why? Why would they do that? Okay. And the reason is, what I have been told many, many times, is that anything that gets put into, you know, the armory room, or basically comes under the authority of, you know, their Ukrainian commander. Because remember, there's all of the leadership is Ukrainian. Foreigners are not allowed to be officers in the International Legion. And that, I think, personally, I think that's a big problem. You know, I think that the leadership of the International Legion should also be international. And I think that that by itself, maybe not by itself, but that is one part of what would solve this problem, for various reasons. In another case, a foreign fighter received a sniper rifle as a present. It was never placed on record. When this soldier quit and went home, he left this weapon with the team leader, Adam, who allegedly decided not to turn it in. We might need a spare, a Legionnaire recalled his team leader saying in justification. And that is a justification. Oh, Anna is live too now? Oh, Christ. All right. Well, it's nice seeing you guys. They're trying to silence what James is outing. No, I don't think so. It's all right. But this is a justification, okay? Because weapons, it's one of the first things that I was told when I, you know, showed up very first day, like first 10 minutes, was that weapons go missing here. And I've heard that many, many times, that from from legionnaires, foreign legionnaires, that they don't have enough weapons, and the weapons that they do have just disappear, mysteriously disappear. And the commander says, "Oh, I don't know what happened to them." And the implication is that the commander is selling them. And that goes for like gear and stuff as well. But maybe not. Maybe he's just transferring them to other units that need them. You know? But what I hear from soldiers who've been on the front line is, no, it's corruption. You know, is that true? Is it not? Do I know? No, I don't. But the fact that they're saying it is bad enough. Okay. Let's see. Even if he decided to turn it in, doing so with a weapon that is unaccounted for would be problematic due to army bureaucracy. The Kyiv Independent approached Adam for comment. He didn't directly respond to questions, but called them hearsay by unqualified former teammates. Interesting. Some leaders apply the same strategy to the weapons of fallen soldiers. They rarely go back to the armory. I don't know that that's wrong. Again, given the circumstances and the reasons why. As Legionnaires explain, the reasoning behind keeping weapons off the books is that if we lose weapons in the field, we can easily grab an extra without additional paperwork and wait times. This approach, though, would cause the uncontrolled flow of unrecorded weapons. As an American, right? Salt of the Red Planet. Yeah, I will be honest. I wouldn't want to serve if my stuff disappeared, and this is probably the number one fear that people had when I was in the barracks and in the Legion. The number one fear that people expressed was fear that their stuff was going to be stolen, and they imposed it on me so much that I wrote on my shaving razor and on my toilet paper. We had to buy our own toilet paper, and they still do when you're in training. You have to buy your own toilet paper, which is weird. I wrote on my toilet paper on the side of the roll, do not touch this toilet paper or you'll get AIDS. Yeah. Guess what my call sign was? But this fear that people have, which has a basis in somewhere, is so corrosive to the esprit de corps of the Legion that, even true or not, doesn't matter. It might as well be. There's so much mistrust, And that's the first thing that I experienced myself, was just this total mistrust and paranoia, coming from soldiers and trainees towards command. And different commanders didn't trust each other, and rumors flying all over the place. Crayon marks on your undies. I literally did. I took on all of my, it was the stupidest thing I've ever done. No, one of the stupidest. Brown crayon. No, I literally wrote on all of my underwear, I wrote AIDS. That's how, and it wasn't just about my underwear being stolen. It was because we all had to wash our clothes in the same washer, and then hang them up to dry in the same room. And so finding your clothes could be difficult. And, nobody ever touched my clothes, and I found them very easily because I could just look for AIDS. It was great. When it's all a bunch of camouflage, it gets really confusing. Anyway. Okay. So the Legion said they take weapons control seriously. In my experience, that is true. My limited experience, that was true. We carry out regular and frequent inspection of weapons, and in case of damage or destruction of weapons, including combat, a mandatory internal investigation is conducted. All weapons and equipment are accounted for. We do not confirm the statements about alleged weapons theft, as this is not true, the HUR-led wing of the Legion said in a written statement to the Kyiv Independent. So they're saying there's no weapons theft. The Legionnaires said they do not regard their armory rooms highly for two main reasons. They don't want their weapons signed off to someone else and are afraid of them going missing. What I just said. In late 2022, the Kyiv Independent reported light weapons, small arms, and military equipment had been misappropriated, citing Legionnaires and reports they wrote about the matter. Some of those accusations were reported to Kapuscinski. Particular soldiers' written testimonies detailed how he allegedly extorted money from subordinates for access to weapons. Wow. I've read this article like 2 or 3 times, all of these articles, and somehow I just forget this stuff, and I'm like, what the hell? Stealing from men with long pipes sounds silly to me. Yeah, fair enough. Right, Mr. Squiggle. People had their guns and armor, etc., from their country stolen under those clans. That Polish guy had very light fingers. The interviews about them are very concerning, looting, etc. Yeah. So, a similar situation might have happened a year later. One HUR soldier told the Kyiv Independent that Kapuscinski tried to sell him the war booty, an offer he claims to have refused. And again, when I was in the barracks, one of the first things that I was told is that not this guy they're talking about, but the head of training, who was an American, had tried to sell some sort of equipment, I think it was armor or something, to the guys who were in the barracks. And everybody was like, he's corrupt. Which I'll talk about that maybe if we have time. I don't know if it was just a rumor, but I've heard it multiple times. When contacted by the Kyiv Independent, Kapuscinski refused to talk. Interesting. Wild West. Several foreign soldiers in the Kyiv Independent interviewed referred to the intelligence overseeing division of the Legion as Wild West, an expression describing Western United States during its frontier period, which was associated with lawlessness. And I haven't heard Wild West, but I've heard like kind of similar descriptions from people who were in it. That may be past tense. I don't know. A, quote, gangster-like environment, soldiers said, is another reason for the widespread reluctance to log in weapons in the armory room. There is so much, quote, there's so much of this, drama, conflict between people that they want to keep their weapons on them at all the time because they are afraid of confrontation, and they keep them for protection, essentially. And it's so crazy that it's evolved into that. So a former member of the HUR run part of the Legion. That's freaking scary, At times, arms were raised at comrades in an argument. In 2022, the Kyiv Independent, citing Legionnaires, reported that commanders of the HUR arm of the Legion pointed weapons at their subordinates. It's kind of what you were talking about. Yeah, Mr. Squiggle said when they arrived, they had them stored in a central location, etc. Then they disappeared. A whole range of stuff. Yes, these are the things that I've heard over and over again. Not just about one individual instance or one individual unit either. This appears to continue happening. In early October 2023, a team was on its way back from the trenches on the zero line. One soldier was dragging behind, and his teammate slowed down to wait out of solidarity and companionship so nothing happens to him, according to a Legionnaire witness. The leader of the team, Adam, returned and, quote, placed a gun to his head. Quote, he said, quote within quote, follow my order or I will shoot you and leave you on the side of the road and say the Russians shot you. But still I went back under heavy fire to get him, the soldier victim to the assault said, corroborated by a witness. Adam denied fellow soldiers' allegations against him, but didn't respond to further questions. So this Adam guy doesn't sound like a Ukrainian, but he does sound like someone who needs some additional training in leadership, maybe. Or no leadership. Another commander, Jason P., used his helmet as a weapon against a subordinate during an argument. Quote, he just lost it. He took his helmet and beat me in the face with it, said the soldier who fell victim to the violence. Quote, I had a fracture in my nose and I lost some pieces of the bottom row of my teeth. Interesting. Okay. The victim and a witness filed reports to their commanders about the assault, which the Kyiv Independent saw. According to the injured fighter, the Legion paid for his treatment, yet didn't punish the attacker. The Kyiv Independent couldn't reach Jason P. for comment. In its written statement provided to the Kyiv Independent, HUR didn't respond to the question about this assault. So people are doing shit they shouldn't do. Leadership people, and they're not. It's being looked, not being looked at. Another example of lawlessness is illegal driving. The Kyiv Independent knows of two separate instances when Legion soldiers who served under HUR were behind the wheel without a license when on duty. Both cases were lethal, one for the driver and one for the civilians. I can tell you I know of at least one case where the sergeant of a unit of a company, I guess, got drunk, drove the unit's car that was given to them by a NGO, and crashed the car. And the unit didn't have a car, didn't have a transportation of any kind for a while. And I mean, I'm not talking about medevac or anything. And that is one reason why, in this case, where we're buying a medical evacuation truck for Alpha Company of the 1st Battalion, it's going to be signed over to a specific member of the of the Legion of that unit, so it cannot be just transferred to anyone, and can't be driven Well, by a drunk sergeant. Or, yeah. In general, I mean, I'm not saying that anyone's perfect, but I have more trust in, the individual soldiers than I do the commanders. Based on all these things that I've heard and been told, Quote, once you spend a set amount of time in the unit, you realize that there really isn't any control of discipline unless you have a moral compass. And unless you have a moral compass that guides you, you will start doing things that are not acceptable in any way, another Legionnaire said. The HUR-led wing of the Legion said it requires impeccable service from its military personnel. However, the issue of violation of internal order arises in any sufficiently large unit, and we are no exception. In one case, drug and alcohol use, which is something servicemen are not allowed to do while on duty, led to a murder. Murder in Kramatorsk took place in Kramatorsk, a city in Donetsk Oblast, in June of 2023. After having completed trench assault training, a team called 50/50 decided to celebrate, and I've heard a lot of crazy bad things about 50/50. I've heard that they are, again, this is hearsay, all right? But I've heard that they're the unit that basically give you no training, and if you live, you stay. Basically, that's what I was told. 50/50 is a death sentence meat grinder, is what I was told by guys in the Legion. So, again, after having completed trench assault training, a team called 50/50 decided to celebrate. The team was divided into two smaller groups that lived in two separate safe houses. Among themselves, they referred to one as the Calm House and the other one as the Party House. That night, the Party House was living up to its name, hosting a party. And I don't know if I should read the rest of it. I kind of want to get through it, this article. But it sounds like they had a party that went bad. And if you think about it, Mr. Squiggle, Adam nickname, he is the guy wanted in connection with the guy found tied in the pond. Former Australian SAS, I think, Lebanese origin. I do remember that, I think. Well, if you think about this, right, you've got a bunch of guys from all sorts of backgrounds, all walks of life, all kinds of different countries. They might come to Ukraine with great ideas and with noble purpose, but war takes a toll, okay? And I'm talking about brain damage, okay, and PTSD, and you've got a bunch of guys trying to deal with that, and they have access to alcohol. This is one reason why I'm really glad that I can't drink more than one beer anymore, because, man, yeah. So it's a recipe for problems. But I think that, honestly, as sad as it seems, I think that Ukraine just kind of had to pull together this entire organization, this entire unit, and it's a big job and it's tough to do. And so, but again, I just want to say, it's now, August of 2024. It's not 2022 anymore. So, in September, 3 months after the murder of Jordan Chadwick, that's what happened apparently. Another British citizen and foreign fighter, Daniel Burke, who was formerly a part of the independent team of foreigners Wolverines and later started his own, the Dark Angels, was found dead near a shooting range not far from Zaporizhia. And this is the one, I think, maybe, Mr. Swiggle, I think this is the one that you were talking about that I found out about on Willy OEM. And apparently what it turned out, if I recall the interview correctly, basically the guy who killed the other guy, they were riding in a car together, and the passenger was flagging the driver, or was the driver flagging them? Flagging means He was carrying his gun in a way that was unsafe, like kind of like across his lap at an angle. This is what eventually came out, and it was loaded. So stupid with a capital Stu. They were headed to the shooting range near Zaporizhia, and the gun went off and killed his friend, and he didn't know what to do, and he tried to hide it, and he tried to hide the guy in the forest, and eventually eventually it came out. That's what I heard. Okay, so moving on. We'll move on from that. Poor vetting process. Legionnaires believe it is people with troubled pasts who bring in a criminal culture. They call the poor vetting process, in particular, superficial background checks, the reason people like Kapuscinski, a convicted criminal, made it to the HUR Legion's ranks. Some foreigners lied about their military experience. While there is no requirement to have military experience to join the Legion, at least one recruit was wrongfully put in a leadership position when the vetting missed his problematic background. I don't know if it's just so missing as it is maybe so much like, we just need warm bodies, We're willing to stretch things a little bit. But, I mean, yeah. Christopher Griffin, a British citizen. By the way, that was my own interjection. For those of you listening, I am interjecting, and I should point out when I do little interjections to the article. Christopher Griffin, a British citizen, had been the leader of a combat team in the HUO part of the Legion until his subordinates discovered that he had no relevant experience. Soldiers' research led them to articles about Griffin's conviction as a fraudster who pled guilty to falsely stating that he had 11 years of military experience to boost his security business in Britain back in 2015. Soon after this discovery, Griffin was removed from the leadership position. Kiev Independent couldn't reach Griffin for a comment using his Ukrainian number. I'm sure he's not in Ukraine. It's a word of mouth, a soldier who used to be on Griffin's team said, describing the vetting process. Yeah. This is a systemic problem, I will say, when I was in the training in the barracks, there were two guys that in the vetting process they had to kick. One, as I recall, he seemed like a pathological liar to me, to be honest. But it turned out he had some sort of he made a bunch of false claims, I think. Maybe he did them, maybe he didn't. Maybe he had military experience, maybe he didn't. But I guess he had on his Facebook, he had some ISIS music. He posted some ISIS music. Yeah, so we started calling him ISIS. Yeah, he was not let in. And another guy was taking pictures. Well, he had some sort of a personality problem with, I think he was German, as I recall. He thought that because Ukraine is a democracy that the military would also be a democracy. He couldn't stand to take orders or to be told anything was wrong. And he would just constantly argue like he couldn't help it. It was driving our commanders crazy. And then eventually he got so pissed off that he started taking pictures of things he shouldn't have been taking pictures of, and then posted them along with, he basically tried to dox a bunch of us and then left, and it was wild. So yeah, there are some guys that shouldn't be let in, but I will say there was another guy who had a drinking problem, and they kind of let it off, they kind of let it go. But I mean, we got punished. We had to do like extra laps and stuff. We all got punished for one guy's drinking problem. And eventually, I heard he screwed up too badly and got kicked out. So these things did happen. There is vetting. It's just not perfect. Okay, so the Russian invasion of Ukraine has brought in very different people, from runaway criminals hoping to lay low in a war-torn country, to heroes to be in search of fame. I really dislike this paragraph here. Okay, see, this is fucking bullshit, is what I'm going to say, because 99% of the people that I met, we certainly, it says here, a few people with extreme views arrived too, as well as many more war veterans struggling to adjust to civilian life in their home countries. I did meet a couple of those who clearly had PTSD, and but this whole thing, this is, quote, they're just addicted to war, they can't live normally, a former legionnaire said. I mean, that's a small percentage of people. Okay. Quote, you're getting guys who have been told by the American military, for whatever reason, you don't work for us anymore. There's a reason why they're not in the American Special Forces, a veteran close to the Legion said. Jameson from Protective Volunteer echoes it. Some of the foreign fighters have troubling motives. This is a quote. They are here solely because they want to kill or escape, or are escaping a bad past. I just don't agree. I think it's a very small percentage. At the same time, some are an absolute asset with the right skills and experience, she added. Many foreigners came to Ukraine with sincere intentions to help defend the country from Russian aggression. Quote, I saw solidarity with the Ukrainians, said a soldier who arrived in Ukraine in the early days of the all-out war. Quote, I mean, it was just seeking to do the right thing. And that's the vast majority. Oh gosh. Miriam, you said about James Vasquez. Is this the same Legion James Vasquez? I think that's part of his first name. I think that's his first name was part of, lied about his military service. As I recall, James Vasquez, Miriam, he said he just came, and there's a lot of guys who did this in the first part of the war. He came and just, basically grabbed an AK and just joined a group of guys. The Legion was very rudimentary in those first days. So I don't think James Vasquez was ever part of the Legion. I may be wrong. So, yeah, KK's GG. I'd assume that for a small percent of combat soldiers, they'd get institutionalized to the military, much like some convicts do to prison life. Sure. And maybe you get discharged from the military, honorable or dishonorable, in your country, and you're like, well, what the fuck do I do now? I guess I go to Ukraine. That's beats going to Russia, as there are Americans that have done exactly that. I'm sorry to say. If you watch Combat Veteran Reacts, he recently did an expose on an American who's fighting for Russia right now, who basically was escaping child. He was trying to have sex with a minor, and he was in the military, and then he falsified, tried all this other crazy crap, and now he's in Russia, fighting for Russia. Ridiculous. Okay. Yet some qualified and once highly motivated fighters quit after facing problematic issues in the Legion, including what they saw as improper use of their skills. This is the number one biggest thing I've heard from Legionnaires: improper use of their skills. Good soldiers get frustrated they are not being properly utilized. They wait, and honestly, I hear this from Ukrainian soldiers too. They wait long periods for contracts or to transfer. They don't get missions that utilize their skill sets, or are on teams with members with questionable skills. This makes good volunteers leave. And this was my point at the beginning. There were 20,000 applicants, and a lot of them, the top level people, and they left, and Ukraine missed a big opportunity by not doing this in an organized way. Okay. Injury bonuses struggle. Foreign fighters say many of them struggle to get their injury bonuses of 100,000 hryvnias, $2,555 paid. Some even face unlawful contract terminations while on recovery, which consequently complicates claiming compensation. Ukraine's defense ministry, which makes the payments, didn't respond to numerous requests for comment. Neither did the ground forces. This is really fucked up. The HUR, sorry, that was my interjection. Yeah, KKSGG. That crazy. That guy was actually a former council member. Yeah, yep, of some town in the. Anyway, hang on. I got to get more tea here. Okay, so this is this is probably one of the biggest deals, I think. And I know I can't believe it's 9:30 already, my time. I wanted to be done with this by now. I wanted to be done with this, and I want this to be the last time I bring up this subject. But I know I can't guarantee that. Okay. Oh my gosh. The HUR-led part of the Legion was the only one to comment. Documents, quote, documents that certify combat injury or trauma can be the basis for appropriate payments and can be the basis for appropriate payments are issued in the unit in the same manner as any other unit of the defense forces, it said in a written statement provided to the Kyiv Independent. Soldiers with whom the Kyiv Independent spoke found it complicated to obtain certain documents from their units, such as a mission report listing the circumstances of the injury, which is necessary for receiving a bonus. Moreover, even getting medical leave proves problematic for wounded foreign fighters. On paper, they are often, quote, on vacation, while in fact, they are in hospital beds. And we have recently, if you may recall, from past live streams, we have recently spoken to a vet, a legionnaire, who was injured and is now on vacation. And I don't know if that is his situation. I don't know if he's getting proper... I know he got treatment, but is he getting paid while he's in recovery, as he should be? Or is he being listed as always on vacation? And why? Like, why would they do that? Like, is it really to save, a little $500 or whatever? Come on. Or are the commanders taking that extra money and putting it in their pockets? That is the question. And that's what I have heard many fighters have speculated that, but we have no confirmation. So wounded legionnaires accuse Ukrainian officers of forcing them to break their contracts, depriving them of financial compensation for their injuries. They also claim to struggle to receive both injury and combat payments because the Legion fails to provide necessary paperwork. One of the infamous cases of Legion failing to pay an injury bonus to a foreign fighter is one of Eric Jorgensen, a former legionnaire serving with the ground forces. The American Marine sustained a serious injury in the aftermath of the Kharkiv offensive in early November 2022. He was taking cover when a Russian shell landed right next to him. Quote, "If I wanted to, I could have reached out and touched the crater it created. It left my right leg hanging on just by the flesh at the bottom," Jorgensen said. Ukrainian doctors did a, quote, "impressive job getting him back on his feet," he said, but eventually he lost the limb. For his service, President Volodymyr Zelensky gave him a medal. He still hasn't received his injury compensation, though. Jorgensen has been waiting for the payment for over a year now. He's still figuring out the full amount he is owed between back pay and injury assistance. Quote, "I tried for over a year to communicate remotely with different administrators, legal and financial personnel of the Legion. It never came," Jorgensen told the Kyiv Independent. Now, I just want to take a moment to point to those of you watching or in the stream who are veterans of your own country in America. I've actually heard a lot of these kind of stories. Historically, I don't know what the situation is with the American vet, the VA right now in America. I've heard good things and I've heard bad things. But historically, I've heard a lot of horror stories of veterans going all the way back to Vietnam not getting the treatment that they needed, for various reasons. Okay. Volunteers crowdfunded money for his prosthesis, and in late spring of 2024, he decided to travel back to Ukraine and tried to speed up the process of getting the injury bonus he is due. Quote, I was led to believe it could be done in weeks to a month or so. That was nearly 3 months ago. Meanwhile, I've got a job, a girlfriend, and a cat back home in the US waiting for me, and I can't tell them all when I'll be home because with all the complexity and bureaucracy, I still don't know. I'm still being told I have to be patient. So that sounds like, I mean, I understand it's only like what how much did they say it was? $555, but it's the symbolic, right? Like the guy gets a medal, and yet he, like that is you're burning bridges with Ukraine is burning bridges with not just with this guy, but everybody who hears his story, So it's a problem, and it needs to be solved. I propose this. I told you I wasn't going to just sit here and complain. I propose this. These injuries of foreign fighters and the compensation thereof should not be paid for by Ukraine at all. At all. In fact, it should be paid for by, there should be a fund set up for exactly this purpose by allied countries of Ukraine. Specifically for foreign fighters in Ukraine to, well, Salt of the Red Planet, here is your patience medal. Yeah. So, it could be that maybe, maybe Ukrainian commanders are told, hey, we don't have enough money. Don't let these foreign fighters go home with Ukrainian money. We need it here. Keep it in Ukraine. Maybe that's what's kind of the thought process of the Ukrainian bureaucracy, right? But that is cutting off your nose to spite your face. Penny wise and pound foolish, Right. KK's GG, it kind of sounds like someone's expecting a $250 bribe to get off their ass and approve his compensation. Yeah, that is probably also the case, too. Yeah. A similar situation happened to a foreign fighter with the call sign Wizard, who also served in the ground forces wing of the Legion. Just like Jorgensen, he has been waiting for injury compensation since he was injured in November 2022. He sustained an injury when his group was returning from a reconnaissance mission behind enemy lines. They had reached Ukraine-controlled territory when the vehicle in front of them hit a mine. Out of the 3 Ukrainians who were in it, 2 were killed and 1 injured, according to Wizard. Wizard was on an APC that was driving behind. He and his comrade, another foreigner, were heavily injured. Wizard got multiple shrapnel wounds, but Ukrainian doctors managed to get almost all of it out. But his sight was irrevocably damaged. He lost vision in his right eye. He didn't receive the injury compensation and paid 7,000 euros for the eye treatment that he later received in a German hospital. He had to borrow the money. Good God. Wow. Another problem is that Legion officers allegedly forcefully terminate contracts with injured servicemen. A recent report concerning the ground forces wing of the Legion obtained by the Kyiv Independent reads, I've seen multiple cases where wounded soldiers in hospitals who lose contact with their unit are called AWOL, absent without leave, or simply deserter, and have their contracts broken. Soldiers discover this when they stop receiving pay. So they're in the hospital, and all of a sudden they stop receiving pay. SkruffyTalez, thank you for coming. I'm sorry, this is a tough one, Scruffy. And I encourage you, anybody showing up late, to go back and listen to the very beginning, maybe the first 10 or 20 minutes on on fast speed because I have a lot of caveats and a lot of warnings about this. But I'm not going to go over it again. I want to get through this article. This problem appears to exist across foreign sections of both the ground forces and military intelligence. In November 2022, the Kyiv Independent already reported that commanders of the HUR arm of the Legion kicked out wounded soldiers from the Legion while they were in the hospitals. The delays or absence of injury bonuses can put soldiers in financial trouble during recovery. One foreign fighter who was injured while serving with the ground forces part of the Legion told the Kyiv Independent that following the incident, he had to sell all his gear to be able to live. Quote, I ruptured my intestines. I knew straight away, and I told them it's impossible to carry all this kit, he said, adding that commanders tried to claim he got injured elsewhere before finally admitting the fact and allowing him to see a doctor. He was away from the front line, recovering from 2 surgeries on his hernia, an injury he received carrying a lot of gear on his shoulders in Bakhmut in August of 2023, and couldn't pay his bills. He hasn't even applied for the injury bonus of 100,000 hryvnias, saying he didn't know it existed at the time. If he had been paid the bonus, he said he wouldn't have had to take measures as radical. Hang on a second. Activate chat. Tell me my chat is activated. Okay. No. All right, we're good. Okay. Especially since his next deployment was upcoming for which he needed gear. Fortunately, he said, friends and family lent him some money to replace what he had sold. This is the case with many foreign fighters in Ukraine. Because of the language barrier and the Ukrainian officers' reluctance to inform them, they are often unaware of the payments they are due. You know, that's a freaking problem. It shows not just negligence and disregard, but like, you're a foreign fighter, we don't want you getting paid. You know, it's active, almost bordering on malice. Payments held up. Other types of compensation like salaries, combat bonuses, and death benefits are also sometimes paid inconsistently or delayed. And this I absolutely know a lot about secondhand. Combat bonuses often don't get paid in the Legion of Ground Forces because team leaders and officers fail to file mission reports on time or at all, a former Legion staff clerk told the Kyiv Independent. And I was told basically that, you're supposed to get, like, if you're on the zero line, you're supposed to get $70, equivalent to $70 per day. $40 if you're on the next line back, and the base pay is $500. So theoretically, the maximum pay you could get if you were on the zero line all month is what, like $3,000? But first of all, nobody's going to be on the zero line all month. But second of all, team leaders and officers fail to file mission reports, so the time that you're spending on the front line doesn't get counted. According to the multiple legionnaires the Kyiv Independent spoke to, one of the most popular reasons salaries are held up is that soldiers don't get to sign contracts for months, and yet, according to them, are required to carry out military tasks. Consequently, their military IDs are delayed as well as payments. The HUR-led part of Legion said that candidates who haven't yet signed a contract can't participate in fighting, but can be in areas of hostilities as civilians. So I was, yes, correct, Scruffy. These issues show how haphazard the Ukrainian army is and how it lacks proper procedures to track soldiers through the medevac chain. And this is focused on the International Legion. I know that there are problems in the regular Ukrainian army. I feel like the Legion itself is like the neglected, bastard redheaded stepchild of the army. It's like, and I'm sure any Ukrainian watching this is going to say, well, how can we fix the Legion when we can't fix the problems in our own army? Well, you know what? I mean, that's no excuse. It's no excuse. But just a word about this paragraph here. So I was not allowed to sign a contract with the Legion because I had an injury, and I got injured in training. And they did take me to the hospital. It took a little while, but I was treated, got reasonable treatment. I mean, they looked at it and they said, yeah, it's fucked up. And they gave me some medicine for my wrist and for my back and gave me a wrap to wrap around it and stuff. So, but I still continued in the training just like everybody else. I was, I wasn't allowed to check out weapons. I wasn't allowed to fire weapons because I wasn't on contract. But I did handle the weapons because it was part of our training, but they weren't loaded. So I never got to shoot anything. But I, assembled and disassembled AKs and cleaned them and all that stuff. Okay, anyway. So, but can be in areas of hostilities as civilians. Participation in hostilities by civilians, candidates who have not signed a contract, is prohibited, and any civilians may travel to the area of hostilities at their own discretion within the limits established by the law. Interesting. So it's kind of like, that's a weird gray area. Candidates for military service in the International Legion of Defense of Ukraine who have not yet signed a contract in accordance with the established procedure cannot receive financial support due to the lack of appropriate legal relations with the state. So they're, bullshit. That's what that is. That's bullshit. So they're dragging their heels on getting people contracts because of bureaucracy or whatever. But there's, that's a problem with the bureaucracy of Ukraine. Not only do the foreign fighters face difficulties in getting paid sometimes, but fighters also experience extra service-related expenses. That is definitely true. Almost every fighter is paying out the ass, spending most of his own. Oh, thank you, Sakai, and say hi to the Shills for me. I'm sorry I can't come over to the Shills. I'd have to go to bed early tonight. So, KK's GG. Let's see. That whole me and mine ideology is so counterintuitive to Western ideology. If I'm owing to someone who owes me no allegiance, they're damn sure getting theirs before my own. Who will understand? I think I understand what you mean there. In general, yeah, it comes out of that whole. It's ironic that communism, which is supposed to inspire collectivism, actually inspired the opposite and ingrained this, like, I'm going to get my own, I'm going to take care of me and mine first. Thank you, Tridents Against Tyrants. Very important topic this stream. Keep up the vital discussions. Yeah, I'm going to try to end. Haji, thank you for letting me know. I am watching the clock. I know also Greg Terry is streaming as well. So I am going to try to wrap it up shortly after 10 here. I just want to finish this article, guys. So according to several legionnaires, they had to pay for their accommodation and petrol from their pockets when they deployed to the front line. Quote, all the expenses must fall on defense industry, not the soldiers, and thus such commanders' demands to pay rent are totally unlawful, said Yulia Zasova, a lawyer with Legal 100, an NGO that provides free advice to servicemen in Ukraine. I will tell you that my understanding, everything I've ever heard from any legionnaire is that they pay rent for the houses that they live in near or close to the zero line. And basically, I think it's ridiculous that you should have to pay rent. But basically what I've been told is, yeah, there is the option. And it's not just in the Legion as well, by the way. Georgian Legion does this. I don't know if it's across the entire military, but basically they've told me, yeah, they have a camp if you want to go sleep in a tent. You could do that. But if you want to sleep in a house, you have to pay rent. Okay, KSGG, yeah. Limited words to express that thought, James. Yeah, that I could have a whole live stream just on that concept alone. Haji, all right. Thank you for asking that. How can we help? I'm not ready to announce this right now, but I want to put together a petition. Okay? Like an online petition. And I want to codify some specific things that we are asking for. And I'm going to try and get some help from some legionnaires to put a petition together with some specific requests that how things need to change. Okay. I have my personal opinions. Obviously, I think this is going to have to be an ongoing, continued discussion. But we need to petition our government. I don't mean just the Ukrainian government. I mean our own individual governments. The governments of those who are fighting in Ukraine need to be fighting for the rights of their citizens who are fighting for Ukraine. That's a big part of what needs to happen here. Like, it fucking pisses me off that the Biden administration cares all about the freaking missiles that Ukraine is using and how they're being used, but doesn't care about how Ukraine is using the Americans who are here. Okay? I think that's a step. I also think that there needs to be a petition in front of the president's office. So there is a Ukraine presidential petition. There's a website for this. And a lot of people will say, oh, it does nothing, blah, blah, blah. But, oh yeah, here we go. Petitionpresident.gov.ua. But this needs to happen as well. Okay? And it really pisses me off that there's all these petitions on here for a bunch of worthless... No. I'm not going to say that. A bunch of stuff... These are petitions. The most popular petitions on this site. Okay. If we order it by number of votes, the most popular petitions are for awarding medals to people who have already died. That's what most of these petitions are for. And nothing here about changing anything in the military. Just awarding medals to people who've died, which I think is ridiculous and needs to be changed. So we're going to continue to have this discussion, Haji, and thank you for bringing it up, because, as I have said repeatedly now, I'm not in the business of just complaining. Okay, so families of this is where it gets really fucked up, guys. I'm sorry. Families of soldiers killed defending Ukraine rarely receive the death bonus of $380,000 from the state. The procedure is designed in a way that discourages them from applying. They must travel all the way to war-torn Ukraine and physically go through the highly bureaucratic process. This is a huge freaking problem. Okay? We sponsored an American man, my friend. If you guys don't remember Tony, we sponsored him to come to Ukraine, to return to Ukraine as a sniper. First, he came to Ukraine and spent 4 months here in Ukraine and got paid $250 for his entire time. And because of the problems that are described in this article. And then when he came back in late February, early March of last year, he and most of his entire unit were killed on their first mission. And he is technically listed as MIA, missing in action. He's not missing in action, guys. I talked to him 45 minutes before he went out. He, like his unit had been sent out, and like 2 guys had come back alive, and they were being sent back out again. Okay. And by the way, who do I blame for that? Who do we blame for that? Should we blame the commanders? Perhaps. Should we blame the Ukrainian military? Perhaps. But this was a time when, remember, Ukraine wasn't getting any help. They had no artillery. And, from February to June, they basically blocked the Russians with their own bodies. And many of those bodies were American bodies. So who do we blame for that? Mike fucking Johnson and Donald Trump. That's who we blame for that, because they were the ones blocking the aid to Ukraine. Okay. So Tony's family, has not received any of this compensation. He has a daughter, okay? Like an 8-year-old daughter. They're never going to get that. They're never going to get that. The procedure is designed in such a way that discourages them from applying. They must travel all the way to war-torn Ukraine and physically go through the highly bureaucratic process. They must file a pile of documents translated into Ukrainian and certified by a Ukrainian consulate with the recruitment center through which the soldier was drafted, wherever the hell that is. They also need to open accounts in one of the 4 given Ukrainian state-owned banks, which, if you're not a citizen, is almost impossible. Okay. Is it worth having a special file in your Discord for us to write our thoughts and places to add all the posts mentioned in this stream? That's a great idea, JPH. That's a great idea. And if you, there's a lot of special room chambers in my Discord, and if you want to pick one and just write everything that you're thinking and feeling right now, go ahead and do. If you don't want to put it in like just the main chat, and I think that's a really good idea, JPH. So I can tell you right now, getting for a foreigner, you can't. This is the problem, right? As a foreigner, you can't open a bank account with one of the 4 given Ukrainian state-owned banks. You have to have at least permanent residency. I know this because I'm having this exact problem, and I've lived here for 5 freaking years. Okay, so getting this compensation, if you are the survivor of a foreign legion, veteran, it doesn't exist. Again, what is the solution to this? Should Ukraine have to pay this money? Where is this money coming from? Ultimately, it's coming from Western governments who are financing Ukraine's defense budget. So why should we have to go around and around in circles? Why can't, again, Western governments should have a fund set up for exactly this. Keith, I can only access a couple of folders in your Discord, James. I don't know why. Oh, man. Thank you for letting me know, Keith. Will you please send me a message on Discord so that I can investigate and fix that? I had someone who helped me on my Discord as an administrator who helped me with those things, and he stopped. He couldn't do it anymore. And so now I have to handle all of that, and I didn't know that was a problem. So thank you for letting me know, Keith. So they must file a pile of documents translated into Ukrainian and certified by a Ukrainian consulate with the recruitment center. Okay, I read that already. Coming to Ukraine and doing all that is not popular with the families of fallen foreign soldiers. Richard Harris is among the very few who are going through with it. His son, Thomas, an Afghanistan war veteran, came to Ukraine in August 2023, joined the HUR part of the Legion, and almost immediately started going on missions. During one of them, he saved his injured teammate's life by stopping his heavy bleeding. In November 2023, Thomas died in a car accident close to the front line. Here he is. Portrait of Thomas, a deceased fighter of the HUR part of the International Legion, was provided to the Kyiv Independent by his father, Richard Harris. Harris arrived in Kyiv from Washington the following month to ensure the remains of his son made it home safely. Ukrainian authorities paid for repatriation, and the Legion organized a funeral, which was, quote, a great ceremony. What the Legion didn't do was explain how to claim the death bonus. There was no one to guide him through the complex bureaucratic procedure. Harris had to investigate it on his own, asking around. Quote, I figured out most of the process myself, actually, and then, obviously, when I went to Kyiv, through the U.S. Embassy, he said. In Kyiv, Harris learned that he needed a Ukrainian bank account to receive the death bonus payment. He opened one in a well-known international bank. When he didn't qualify. Now he plans to travel to Ukraine again. I wish I could talk to him and say, you're not going to get that money because you are not a legal resident of Ukraine. They're not going to give it to you. Almost guaranteed. Harris said he doesn't want the money for himself. He wants to donate it. One option he is considering is financing the memorial for the foreign defenders of Ukraine. Whew. Wow, guys. I made it. I did it by 10. So, thank you all, those of you who are listening, those of you who listen later. Yeah. KK's GG, I was more looking at the aspect of how stupid it is not to pay these legit claims of Foreign Legion injuries. Yeah. It's dumb. Because, again, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're burning your bridges. Ukraine could have 100,000 foreign fighters here. All these guys in Ukraine who are afraid to fight and, avoiding the draft and Tisica, they are needed in the economy. There's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people who would gladly come to Ukraine to fight. And yeah, most of them need training. But Ukraine, I feel, is in a position now where these problems can be fixed, should be fixed. And maybe it means that the Legion needs to be completely, basically disassembled and reconstituted. Maybe that's what needs to happen. But I really think that nothing is going to change unless you people watching and listening, both Ukrainians and foreigners, start to raise a ruckus about this. Normally, maybe a couple of months ago, there was a little argument in a chat about getting, politicians getting involved in the military and how that's a real mess. And in general, I think I agree. I think perhaps like in Afghanistan, our army could have, if it could have been allowed to do what it needed to do, but was held back by all sorts of stupid politics. But in this case, the citizens have a duty to regulate their army. And I'm talking about Ukrainians, The problem is most Ukrainians don't even know that the International Legion exists, which is why these changes are not being made. Mitch. Okay. Thank you, JPH. I'm sorry that I have to bring this up. I'm bringing it up because I want the International Legion to be awesome. I want it to be like, I think that there should be every town and city. Ukrainians don't understand how much support they have internationally. Every town and city, this is not a fantasy here. Every town and city in America, and probably in many other countries as well, could have like sponsor a Legion unit, you know, and all the guys from, you know, Pocomo or something have a little squad, you know, and all these issues with lack of supplies, and I've talked about it many times about, you know, the Legion being the last to get any supplies, the last to get vehicles that have no vehicles. They don't know, all the gear is donated from NGOs. Man, I haven't even told half the stories that I have heard. You know, I've just been reading this article. Okay, so, but we have to stand up and do something and say something. So, I'm going to put together a petition. I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow. I don't know exactly what time. Well, it's going to be between Rick the Ukrainian. He has two. He has the Azov stream, and then he has another stream. So it'll be like 6:30, 7 o'clock Kiev time. And I don't want to spend the whole live stream on just this one subject, but I will have some proposals about that. So my God, I'm at 2 hours now. Thank you very much, those of you who have listened. Please put in the comments, if you're listening to this later, any criticisms that you have. I'm totally open to it. I've probably made a ton of mistakes and misstatements. They were not intentional. And please just know that I'm talking about this so we can fix these problems, not because I want to shit all over Ukraine or the Legion or any soldiers. I want to be a soldier myself. And I intend to be soon, very soon. And I can tell you that even if I end up joining one of these units that's described in here, that will have no impact on my ability or willingness to fight or follow commands. I'll be like, yes, sir. Charge in. Give me a shovel. I'm totally okay with that, you know. But like I said, I just want the Legion, and I want Ukraine to be the best it can be. Thank you, Mr. Squiggle. I will put the notification out now. Thanks a lot. All right, guys, go check out the Shills or Greg Terry or both of them. Thank you all for coming. Slava Ukraine.